Hi, Beck Mac here for Wow Bus going to Charleville, and we're still on the road. And I've talked to so many incredible women already. I feel very blessed and lucky. And now I'm going to talk to another amazing woman. Hello, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Faiza, and I'm one of these incredible women as well.
Yes, indeed. Now, tell us, you have a big involvement with WOW. You're on the board. How did you get involved in this organisation?
Yep. Look, my start with WOW is very, very long. I was involved in their first event. I think that was 2015 or 17, something like that. I've known Kathy since then, and I guess what kept me going with WOW are probably a couple of things. One is the commitment to diversity. You know, they're really, really genuinely committed to diversity, and they bring people like me to bring in other voices, not just multicultural voices, but First Nation people. And I'm amazed by how genuine they are in this pursuit. And the second one is WOW itself as a festival or as a meeting place for women of different age groups, different diversities, and it's just amazing to be part of something that is joyful as well.
Yeah, and it really is, isn't it? There's a real spirit of connectedness, but a bit cheeky too sometimes. But also, obviously, people go deep in conversation.
Absolutely, and I think that cheekiness is needed because when we start talking about women's issues and structures of oppression and talking truths and telling stories, it can get really dark, and so we need the cheekiness, we need the fun, we need the joy, and I think whenever women come together, naturally they find a space of joy, and WOW tends to embody that, despite or as part of the deep conversations as well.
So outside of WOW, you have a lot of degrees. You've studied a lot. You've got a very successful career in other sort of, I guess, avenues. So what is the core of your work?
Look, I'm motivated by social justice, and part of my motivation is knowledge, because the more you know, two things happen. The more you know that you don't know, and the more you understand the world around you, and you want to be part of that change that happens. And that's what motivates me, issues of social justice and change towards addressing or reaching those points. So my involvement now with WOW is part of that, but my learning, I started with architecture, and architecture for me was about improving the built environment. I come from Sudan, and in Sudan we have a lot of poverty, a lot of things like that. And I read when I was young that if you start dealing with the built environment, you improve people's lives significantly. And so I decided to study architecture. When I came to Australia, I went into education because I could see that migrant children or people from refugee backgrounds were struggling early on. They didn't have that support. And then I went into policy work. All these are about change. And so to me, change is important. I'm now finalizing on the last leg of a PhD, focusing on gender studies and looking at the impact of legislation, law. The idea is that all institutions have been designed by men for men, and law is one of those institutions. And if you look at family law, you start understanding that it was not designed, you know, to center women. Women are at the margins of law and of institutions, and that's what motivates me to keep going and to keep going and going and going.
And it's interesting, I've just been working with an architect, and the skills that they've brought to the project are not about the building. It's this amazing ability to map a system that will bring something to fruition, but also negotiate with multiple partners that are often really difficult around legislation and around council and around budget. So I can see how you could use some of your architect skills in bringing this all together.
Look, absolutely. So we now talk about design thinking, and design thinking is about seeing the whole, like imagining it in your mind, in four dimensions, including time, budgets, and when you design a building, you imagine it in your head with people living in the building. and interacting with it, going upstairs, coming downstairs, having a shower, for example, something like that. And so you can't look at parts of something without seeing it as a whole, and that disconnectedness are part of the design. And so it's a good skill, but sometimes people don't appreciate it, especially if it's fast. Let's get it done. Let's do it. Whatever. We don't have the budget. Don't fast on. It becomes very difficult. But it allows you to think holistically, and it helps in integrating and mapping the different points in the system. Yeah.
Talking about the system and the challenges in the system, I know this is a very difficult and broad subject, but if there was one thing that you could see change in the next 3 years around the law in regards to women within this country, what would it be?
Look, we're now really engaged and involved and have opened, the Pandora box of domestic violence. And I think this is the space that we can now influence and we can make a lot of change in. There is talk in Queensland at the state level about coercive control. And yes, we want to see change in that space, but we also want to make sure that when these legislative changes happen, that their implementation does not marginalize certain groups, because sometimes we have good laws, but their implementation by people who've not trained, who do not have an understanding, can marginalize and further criminalize certain groups like First Nation people, like multicultural people, like people from refugee backgrounds who have suffered significant traumas. The law will not look at those because the law is designed for the average person. So while I want to see change there, I want there to be further discussions about how we can put in place support systems so that this change is beneficial to all. We need to center women, but we also need to center families and understand that we're all human beings.
Yep. That's really so crucial, isn't it? And finally, what does the F word, meaning feminism, mean to you?
Gee, that's so awesome. Like the F word is solidarity, is sisterhood. It's coming home. And I say it's coming home because I think when I was young, my father was a feminist, but I didn't know it. As I said, growing up in Sudan, I grew up with a father who had 4 daughters and 4 sons, and he treated them equally. We all had the same opportunities. My sisters learned to drive the car at the same time as my brothers did. We went to the same schools. We were expected to achieve as much as our brothers were expected to achieve. And my mother was always telling us that none of us is going to fall in love or get married before she has a bachelor degree.
Love that.
And her rationale is once you have a bachelor degree, you're financially independent.
Yes.
And so you can walk out on any man who does not treat you respectfully.
Yeah.
And that was inbuilt and ingrained, and that's very feminist.
Yeah,
That thinking is very feminist. So that's how I grew up, and that's how I thought the world was. But when I started engaging with women outside, and working and visiting other families, I realized that I was living in a bubble. And that's
It's a shock, isn't it? If you've come from a family that is feminist, and because I did too, and then you walk out into the other world, you go, "Are you freaking serious?"
Exactly. And you look at people like, really? Something is really wrong here, and you're living with that. You're accepting that, and you get really angry. And so when I came here to Australia and studied feminism, it was like coming home. That's why I say coming home. I'm one of 4 of 3, 4 sisters. Blah, 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 I can't even count. And so my eldest sister is a GP. She's a doctor. My second sister is a scientist. My third sister is an architect and a lecturer at the university. And I am the 4th sister. So, we all embraced life, and we all excelled in what we do and we did. So to me, feminism, that's one aspect of feminism, and it's about understanding the structures. And when I talk about structures, I talk about institutions, and institutions in the sense that The law is an institution. Colonialism is an institution. The family is an institution. So these are all institutions and structures that even if they looked at women favorably, their implementation and the way they manage women does not center women's interest. And that's what feminism has made me aware of, not just at the family level, but at the governance level. We still don't have many women in parliament. We still don't have gender pay equity. So there are so many things that we continue to struggle for, and that is the solidarity for me. Yeah. As a multicultural person, there are added layers of complexity that I also deal with. And finally, the F word is one that I use radically. When someone tells me, go back to where you come from, I tell them F you.
Yeah, F you. I love that. You're awesome. Double F you. Well, thank you so much. We could talk. You're just like a fountain, a waterfall of knowledge and thoughts and ideas. It's been so wonderful, and I look forward to talking to you more over the festival. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and I look forward. And I just love the baritone in your voice. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.